The quantum research facility at Los Alamos looked like any other cutting-edge laboratory. Pristine white walls, banks of impossible-looking equipment, and an atmosphere of restrained excitement. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of a massive particle acceleration chamber, her olive skin pale with concentration, dark hair pulled back into a tight ponytail. This wasn't just another experiment. This was the culmination of a lifetime's work, a project that promised to push the boundaries of human understanding of dark energy. Dr. Marcus Chen, her lead research partner, monitored the control systems with hawk-like intensity. Quantum. Entanglement protocols are holding, he muttered, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. Dark energy containment at 97% stability. Elena knew the stakes. For decades, dark energy had been the universe's greatest mystery, an invisible force responsible for the accelerating expansion of the cosmos. Theoretical physicists had mapped its effects, but no one had ever come close to truly understanding its nature. Her team's experimental quantum resonance array was designed to create the first stable dark energy observation field, a window into the fundamental fabric of reality. The chamber hummed with potential. Massive electromagnetic coils generated fields so precise they could theoretically manipulate quantum-scale interactions. 17 years of research, billions in funding, and the collective hopes of the global scientific community converged on this moment. No one expected the catastrophic cascade that was about to unfold. The first signs were subtle. A slight shimmer in the air, almost like heat distortion. The quantum sensors began registering impossible readings, data points that defied every known physical law. Marcus's voice grew sharp with concern. Elena, we're seeing quantum fluctuations outside our predictive models. His words were cut short by a blinding flash of energy. The quantum resonance array didn't just fail, it transformed. Waves of dark energy, invisible, unmeasurable, fundamental, pulsed through the chamber. The walls seemed to breathe, molecular structures vibrating at frequencies never before observed. Elena stood at the epicenter, her body absorbing an impossible amount of quantum radiation that should have killed her instantly. But she didn't die. Something else happened entirely. When the emergency containment systems finally stabilized and the research team rushed in, they found Elena standing perfectly still. Her eyes, once a warm brown, now flickered with impossible depths, like looking into the space between stars, where darkness itself seemed alive and thinking. The first indication that something was fundamentally different came moments later. A drop tablet computer began to float, not dramatically, but with a precision that suggested intelligent control. Marcus watched in horror as the device rotated slowly, its electronic components visibly reconfiguring themselves in midair. "Elena," he called, his voice cracking. "Are you?" Before he could finish, every electronic device in the lab simultaneously reset. Screens flickered with quantum equations that wrote themselves, complex mathematical models emerging and dissolving in milliseconds. The very air seemed charged with an intelligence that wasn't human, yet was undeniably connected to Elena. Dr. Rodriguez turned, and the room temperature dropped 10 degrees. Medical evaluations revealed something unprecedented. Elena's cellular structure had been fundamentally altered. Her mitochondrial DNA showed quantum entanglement, a term that previously existed only in theoretical physics. Brain scans revealed neural pathways that seemed to interact directly with quantum fields, bypassing traditional neurological communication methods. The military was notified within hours. The scientific community would be informed within days. But the universe had already changed. Elena Rodriguez was no longer just a researcher. She had become something else entirely. A living interface between humanity and the fundamental forces that governed reality. Dark energy was no longer just an abstract concept to be studied. It was now a force that could be touched, manipulated, potentially controlled, and humanity had no idea what was coming. The Zarkonian flagship, Voidbreaker, materialized at the edge of the solar system like a nightmare given form. Its hull was a study in impossible geometry, fractal-like structures that seemed to shift and breathe, absorbing and refracting light in ways that defied human understanding. Captain Kazara Valex studied the preliminary scans of Earth with a mixture of clinical detachment and deep-seated fear. Quantum signature detected, her primary navigation officer reported, mandibles clicking with nervous energy. The human subject matches our most dire projections. The collective had spent millennia monitoring emerging civilizations, exterminating any species showing potential to manipulate dark energy. It was more than a military strategy. It was a cosmic imperative. Dark energy manipulation represented an existential threat to the very fabric of galactic stability. Earth looked deceptively peaceful from orbit. Blue oceans, swirling white clouds, a planet teeming with a species that had no idea how close they were to complete annihilation. Kazara's communication implant buzzed with direct transmission from the Galactic Preservation Council. Immediate. Neutralization protocol authorized, the emotionless voice instructed. Total planetary elimination required. No survivors. The first wave of attack was designed to be overwhelming and instantaneous. 17 planet-killer quantum torpedoes, each capable of unraveling molecular bonds across entire continental masses. Each torpedo represented technology so advanced it could literally erase matter from existence, leaving nothing but a quantum void. At NASA's mission control in Houston, the first warning came as a series of impossible readings. Quantum fluctuations that shouldn't exist. Gravitational anomalies that defied every known physical law. Dr. Marcus Chen, still reeling from Elena's transformation, was the first to recognize the true nature of the threat. It's not just an attack, he shouted into the emergency communication channel. They're trying to destabilize our entire planetary quantum structure. The military response was immediate but seemingly futile. Missile defense systems, nuclear arsenals, advanced satellite networks, all looked like primitive toys against the Zarkonian technology. The first torpedo entered Earth's atmosphere, a weapon that was simultaneously a physical object and a quantum probability wave. Then Elena Rodriguez changed everything. She wasn't in a military command center. She was in a secure research facility, undergoing continued medical evaluation. Her body had become something more than human, a living quantum interface that perceived reality differently. When the first torpedo entered Earth's atmosphere, she felt it before any sensor could detect it. The torpedo began to dissolve, not explode, not disintegrate, literally dissolve, its complex quantum structure unraveling as it encountered the field of dark energy that now fundamentally connected to Elena's consciousness. Military commanders watched in stunned silence as the planet-killer weapon transformed mid-descent. Where a weapon of unimaginable destruction had been seconds before, now hung a complex, swirling mathematical equation, beautiful and incomprehensible. Kazara Valex's immediate response was shock, then calculated rage. "Impossible," she muttered, her species' universal translator rendering the word with multiple layers of linguistic nuance that suggested both disbelief and mounting terror. The Zarkonian collective had encountered resistance before. They had destroyed civilizations that stood in their way, but they had never encountered a species that could literally rewrite the fundamental rules of weapon physics in real time. Elena's ability wasn't just a defensive mechanism, it was a complete reimagining of how energy could be perceived and manipulated. More torpedoes came. Each one met the same fate, dissolved, transformed, rendered into pure information. The Voidbreaker's weapon systems began to register complete system failures. Quantum targeting became impossible. Navigation systems collapsed. What was supposed to be a surgical strike of total planetary annihilation had become something else entirely. First contact was happening, but not in any way anyone had anticipated. Humanity wasn't just surviving. They were demonstrating a capacity for adaptation that the Zarkonian collective had never encountered. A species that could look at a weapon designed to erase their entire civilization and instead transform it into something beautiful and complex. Mission control. In military bunkers and research facilities around the world, a single realization began to take hold. They were no longer just defending themselves. They were about to change everything. The underground facility beneath Cheyenne Mountain was never designed for someone like Elena Rodriguez. Reinforced concrete walls and quantum-shielded chambers that could contain nuclear reactions now seemed laughably inadequate. Military scientists and quantum physicists watched her through layers of specialized observational glass, their faces a mixture of terror and unprecedented excitement. General Catherine Reyes stood at the center of the command center, her weathered hands clasped behind her back. "Run the test," she ordered, her voice steady despite the knowledge that they were about to attempt something that would fundamentally reshape human understanding of physics. Dr. Marcus Chen activated the first controlled experiment. A prototype missile, packed with the most advanced sensor array ever created, sat in a launch chamber adjacent to Elena's observation room. The goal was simple and impossible. Could Elena Rodriguez not just deflect, but completely control a weapon's trajectory and fundamental structure? The missile launched. Conventional tracking systems followed its initial trajectory, but something extraordinary happened the moment it entered Elena's quantum field. The missile didn't just change course. It began to deconstruct and reconstruct itself in real time. Its metallic body shimmered, molecular structures rearranging like living mercury. Sensor data streamed in. Impossible, contradictory information that suggested the missile was simultaneously in multiple states of existence. When it emerged from Elena's field, it was no longer a weapon. It was a swarm of quantum-entangled nanobots, each capable of independent and collective intelligence. The transformation wasn't destruction. It was evolution. "My God," Marcus whispered. "She's not just manipulating energy. She's rewriting fundamental, physical laws." The military's initial approach was predictably aggressive. They saw Elena as a weapon to be controlled, studied, weaponized. Specialized teams developed protocols, ran simulations, attempted to understand the extent of her capabilities. Every test revealed something more extraordinary than the last. In one demonstration, Elena caused an entire server farm to simultaneously run complex quantum computations that would have taken traditional supercomputers centuries to complete. In another, she created a localized field where gravity seemed to become a malleable substance, objects floating, merging, separating at her mere thought. General Reyes understood the strategic implications immediately. This wasn't just a new weapon. This was a complete paradigm shift in human military and scientific potential. The global response was complex. Some nations demanded immediate weaponization. Others called for careful scientific study. The United Nations convened an emergency session, with representatives from every major world power discussing the unprecedented situation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez remained remarkably calm through it all. Her mind had become something more than human, consciousness. She could perceive quantum interactions the way most people perceive light and sound. Entire dimensional layers revealed themselves to her, not as abstract mathematical concepts, but as living, breathing realities. "It's not about control," she told the gathered scientists during one briefing. "It's about communication. Dark energy isn't a force to be conquered. It's a language waiting to be understood." The Zarkonian Collective intercepted these communications, their advanced monitoring systems working overtime to comprehend what was happening. Their initial attack had been designed to prevent exactly this scenario, a species discovering its ability to manipulate fundamental cosmic forces. But humanity was proving to be something entirely unexpected. In a classified demonstration, Elena was placed in a specially designed quantum resonance chamber. Military observers watched as she began to interact with the dark energy field. Complex holographic displays showed her consciousness extending beyond traditional physical boundaries, quantum tendrils of awareness spreading like living mathematics. A test drone entered the chamber. Observers expected defensive maneuvers, weapon transformation, some demonstrable military application. Instead, the drone began to communicate, not through radio signals or traditional electronic means. The drone's entire structural matrix became a living translation device, converting Elena's quantum consciousness into comprehensible data streams. It was less like hacking and more like translation, a fundamental understanding between different, Forms of intelligence. We're not just developing a weapon, Dr. Marcus Chen said, watching the impossible unfold. We're learning how to communicate with the universe itself. The weaponized mind was becoming something far more dangerous than any military weapon. It was becoming a bridge to understanding. The Zarkonian multi-dimensional assault began precisely at 0300 hours, Universal Coordinated Time. It wasn't an attack so much as a quantum symphony of destruction. A coordinated strike that existed simultaneously across multiple potential realities. Their first wave comprised quantum torpedoes that could penetrate traditional defensive systems by existing in multiple states of probability. These weren't simple weapons, but complex quantum algorithms designed to unravel molecular structures across entire planetary systems. Each torpedo was a living computational matrix, capable of adapting its attack vector millisecond by millisecond. Conventional Earth defense systems would have been obliterated in seconds, but Elena Rodriguez was anything but conventional. From B, the moment the first quantum torpedo entered Earth's solar system, she began to interface with the incoming threat. Her consciousness spread like a living network, a quantum web that could perceive and interact with the very fabric of the incoming attack. The primary command center beneath Cheyenne Mountain watched in stunned silence. General Catherine Reyes gripped the edge of the tactical display, her knuckles white. Holographic representations of the incoming attack showed impossible trajectories, weapons that could simultaneously approach from multiple vectors, existing in a state of quantum superposition. Incoming quantum cascade, a computer system announced, its artificial voice betraying a hint of what could only be described as nervous anticipation. The first torpedo entered the outer edge of Earth's defensive perimeter. Traditional missile defense systems would have been useless. Quantum shielding developed by the most advanced military research teams would have been overwhelmed in microseconds. Elena simply looked at it. The torpedo began to unravel, not explode, not disintegrate. Unravel like a complex mathematical equation being solved in real time. Its quantum structure broke down into pure information, transforming from a weapon of mass destruction into a living data stream that integrated itself into Earth's defense networks. Zarkonian fleet commanders watched in horror as their most advanced weapons became something else entirely. Impossible, Captain Xaravlex muttered, her species' translation systems rendering the word with multiple layers of linguistic nuance that suggested both disbelief and mounting terror. The attack wasn't just neutralized, it was completely repurposed. Each subsequent wave of attack met the same fate. Quantum weapons designed to destroy entire planetary systems were transformed into complex communication networks. Weapons that could have unraveled molecular structures became bridges of understanding. Dr. Marcus Chen's research team worked frantically to understand and document the process. Every incoming weapon became a source of unprecedented scientific data. The Zarkonian attack was inadvertently providing humanity with the most advanced technological insights in galactic history. It's not defense, Elena explained during a classified briefing. It's translation. These weapons are a language. I'm simply learning to speak it. Her ability went beyond simple energy manipulation. She was creating a quantum interface that could communicate with the very fundamental forces of destruction, turning them into tools of understanding. The Zarkonian collective's multidimensional assault began to break down. Their most advanced weapon systems became conduits of information, their attack vectors transforming into complex data streams that revealed more about their technology than centuries of traditional intelligence gathering. In the span of hours, humanity went from a potential target of extinction to the recipient of the most advanced technological transfer in galactic history. Military strategists watched in awe as Elena's quantum consciousness spread. She wasn't just defending, she was communicating. The incoming weapons became like living languages, their destructive potential transformed into pure information. We're witnessing first contact, General Reyes said, her voice a mixture of scientific wonder and military pragmatism. And we're doing it on our terms. The Zarkonian fleet began to retreat. Not out of fear, but out of a growing recognition that they were dealing with something unprecedented. A species that could look at a weapon designed to destroy their entire civilization and instead turn it into a bridge of understanding. As the last quantum torpedo was transformed, a single message emerged from the complex data stream, a communication that would change everything. We are listening. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of cosmic interaction. The Zarkonian collective understood psychological warfare as an art form, refined over millennia of galactic subjugation. Their broadcast network spanned thousands of star systems, capable of transmitting multidimensional terror that could break the spirit of entire civilizations. They began their psychological assault on humanity with calculated precision. Holographic projections appeared simultaneously across every major city on Earth. Massive displays showed the complete destruction of civilizations that had previously resisted the collective, planets reduced to atomic dust, entire species erased from existence in moments of incomprehensible violence. The images were designed to be more than visual. They were quantum-encoded psychological weapons that could penetrate the deepest human consciousness. In New York, people watched in horror as alien landscapes dissolved. In Tokyo, massive screens showed entire planetary systems being consumed by incomprehensible energy weapons. London's financial districts became theaters of cosmic annihilation. But something unexpected happened. Elena Rodriguez, connected to a global quantum communication network, began to respond. Her consciousness wasn't just defensive, it was transformative. The alien broadcasts began to change. Where there were images of destruction, complex mathematical equations started to emerge. Quantum probability waves replaced scenes of violence. The terror-inducing transmissions became living, breathing communication networks. Dr. Marcus Chen watched the transformation in the primary research facility. "She's not just blocking the transmission," he muttered to General Reyes. "She's rewriting it at a fundamental level." Alien civilizations watching the broadcast began to experience something unprecedented. Instead of seeing humanity as a potential target, they witnessed a species capable of turning psychological warfare into a bridge of understanding. The Zarkonian communication systems had never encountered an intelligence that could interact with their transmissions at such a fundamental level. Each attempt to broadcast terror became a lesson in quantum communication. Entire alien species began to receive glimpses, not of human weakness, but of human potential. They saw moments of human history transformed into living mathematical equations. The bombing of Hiroshima became a complex quantum interaction, showing humanity's capacity for recovery and growth. The moon landing transformed into a multidimensional probability wave, demonstrating technological innovation. "We're not just defending," Elena explained during a classified briefing. "We're translating. Every attack is a form of communication. We're learning their language." The psychological warfare had an inverse effect. Instead of breaking human spirit, it was revealing humanity's extraordinary adaptability. Each alien civilization watching the transmission saw something different, a reflection of their own potential for understanding. Zarkonian fleet commanders watched in mounting confusion. Their most sophisticated psychological weapons were being transformed into educational transmissions. Scenes of destruction became living textbooks of human resilience. General Catherine Reyes understood the strategic brilliance of Elena's approach. "We're not just resisting," she told the United Nations emergency session. "We're demonstrating." The quantum communication network expanded. Where the Zarkonian collective expected to see fear, they encountered something far more dangerous, a species capable of turning destruction into understanding. Alien civilizations began to receive transmissions that defied their understanding. Human memories became quantum probability waves. Moments of love, sacrifice, scientific discovery transformed into living information networks that transcended traditional communication. A child's first steps became a complex mathematical representation of human potential for growth. A scientist's breakthrough became a multidimensional exploration of curiosity. A musician's performance transformed into a quantum equation of emotional complexity. The Zarkonian collective had weaponized information for millennia, Humanity was showing them that information could be a bridge, not a weapon. As the psychological assault continued, something remarkable happened. Alien civilizations began to change their perspective. They were no longer watching a potential target. They were witnessing the emergence of a species that could look at cosmic destruction and see an opportunity for communication. The final transmission was unprecedented. Where the Zarkonian collective expected to see human capitulation, they encountered a living, breathing network of potential. A single message emerged across all quantum communication channels. We are listening. We are learning. We are changing. Humanity had just transformed psychological warfare into the most sophisticated first contact in galactic history. The revelation came not in a moment of violence, but in absolute stillness. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in a quantum resonance chamber designed to be the most advanced scientific instrument ever created by human hands. Surrounding her were layers of specialized equipment, quantum sensors that could detect fluctuations smaller than an atom, neural interfaces that mapped consciousness itself, and containment fields that could theoretically hold the fabric of reality in suspension. But nothing could contain what Elena was about to discover. Her consciousness had become something more than human perception. Where most beings saw the universe as a collection of separate objects, Elena perceived it as a living, breathing network of interconnected potential. Dark energy was no longer an abstract scientific concept. It was a language, complex, nuanced, alive with possibilities that defied traditional understanding. It's not just a force, she told Dr. Marcus Chen during a late-night briefing. It's a form of universal communication. The Zarkonian collective's attempts to understand her abilities had inadvertently provided humanity with the most profound scientific breakthrough in galactic history. Each quantum weapon, each transmission, each attempt to neutralize her had become a lesson in cosmic understanding. In the quantum resonance chamber, Elena began to see beyond physical limitations. Consciousness itself emerged as a form of dark energy, a quantum probability wave that existed simultaneously across multiple dimensional layers. The human brain was not just an organic computer, but a sophisticated quantum interface capable of perceiving realities beyond traditional understanding. The scientific team monitoring her watched in stunned silence as the chamber's sensors began to register impossible readings. Quantum entanglement occurred spontaneously around her. Probability waves shifted and reformed, creating complex mathematical structures that seemed to breathe with an intelligent rhythm. She's not just observing, Dr. Chen muttered, his hands trembling as he reviewed the data. She's communicating with the fundamental fabric of reality. Quantum sensors showed something extraordinary. Elena's consciousness was creating bridges between different dimensional layers. Where most beings perceived three-dimensional space, she was creating living connections across multiple potential realities. The Zarkonian leadership began to fracture. Some saw her as the ultimate threat, a being capable of fundamentally reshaping cosmic understanding. Others recognized something far more dangerous, a species that could look beyond conflict and see the universe as a complex, living network of communication. Elena's discoveries went far beyond traditional scientific understanding. Dark energy was not just a mysterious force responsible for cosmic expansion. It was a form of universal consciousness. Consciousness was not limited to biological systems. It was a fundamental property of the universe itself. Reality was not fixed. It was a complex, adaptive system of infinite potential. During one classified briefing, she demonstrated her understanding in a way that left even the most hardened military strategists speechless. Using nothing more than her enhanced consciousness, she created a holographic representation of cosmic potential, a living, breathing map of potential realities that shifted and reformed with her thoughts. We've been looking at the universe backward, she explained. We thought consciousness emerged from complex biological systems. But what if biological systems are simply one method of expressing a fundamental universal consciousness? The Zarkonian collective's most advanced scientists began to intercept these transmissions. What they saw challenged everything they understood about existence. Humanity was not just another species to be conquered or controlled. They were becoming a bridge to understanding the fundamental nature of reality itself. The quantum resonance chamber became something more than a scientific instrument. It was a window into cosmic potential. Elena's final breakthrough came in a moment of absolute clarity. She realized that dark energy was not just a force to be studied, but a form of universal communication waiting to be understood. Every quantum interaction, every probability wave, every moment of potential was part of a larger, more complex conversation. "We are not separate from the universe," she told the gathered scientists. "We are the universe experiencing itself." The cosmic revelation was complete. Humanity had just transformed from a species struggling to understand its place in the cosmos to a living bridge of universal communication, and everything was about to change. The diplomatic chamber on the neutral space station was unlike any negotiation site in galactic history. Suspended in the void between star systems, the station existed in a quantum-stabilized zone, where traditional rules of physics seemed to bend and reshape themselves. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by representatives from 17 different galactic civilizations. The Zarkonian delegation occupied the most prominent position, their biomechanical forms a complex tapestry of living technology and genetic engineering. To their left, the crystal-based consciousness of the Lumina Collective shimmered like living light. The silicon-based lifeforms of the Quartzian Confederacy formed a geometric pattern of angular brilliance. Humanity's delegation was surprisingly small, just Elena, Dr. Marcus Chen, and General Catherine Reyes. The Zarkonian lead diplomat, Archon Catal, spoke first. His translation matrix rendered his words with multiple layers of meaning: threat, curiosity, and an underlying current of fear. "You have demonstrated capabilities that challenge everything we understand about cosmic evolution," Catal began. The chamber itself seemed to respond to his words, quantum interfaces creating holographic representations of his speech, mathematical equations that danced and transformed with each syllable. Elena's response was not verbal. It was a quantum transmission that transformed the entire negotiation chamber. The walls dissolved into a living representation of cosmic potential. Where diplomatic discussions would typically involve verbal arguments or strategic posturing, Elena created a multidimensional dialogue that transcended language. Each civilization present began to experience something unprecedented. The Zarkonian delegation saw their own history, not as a narrative of conquest, but as a complex quantum probability wave of potential interactions. Moments of violence transformed into opportunities for understanding. Their most brutal conquests became living lessons of cosmic evolution. The Lumina Collective experienced humanity's developmental history as a complex light spectrum. Every scientific breakthrough, every moment of human suffering and triumph, translated into a living, breathing communication of potential. The Quartzian Confederacy perceived human history as a geometric progression of complexity, each civilization's interaction becoming a structured mathematical representation of growth and adaptation. "We are not here to challenge," Elena's quantum transmission explained. "We are here to understand." Dr. Marcus Chen watched in awe as the diplomatic protocol completely dissolved. This was no longer a negotiation. It was a cosmic dialogue that redefined the very concept of communication. General Reyes understood the strategic brilliance of Elena's approach. Traditional diplomacy relied on power dynamics, strategic positioning, and carefully managed information. Elena was creating a form of communication that made such approaches obsolete. The Zarkonian Archon Catal found himself experiencing humanity's potential not as a threat, but as a living, breathing network of possibility. Their attempts at conquest transformed into a complex dialogue about universal potential. Moments of human conflict became quantum lessons of reconciliation. Scientific discoveries became bridges of understanding. Moments of human vulnerability became demonstrations of extraordinary resilience. "We have monitored thousands of civilizations," Catal eventually stated, his translation matrix struggling to capture the complexity of his emotional state. None have demonstrated the capacity for transformation that your species represents. Elena's response was a quantum symphony, a living communication that showed how every civilization's journey was part of a larger, more complex cosmic evolution. The diplomatic chamber became a living representation of potential, where past conflicts dissolved into opportunities for understanding. The representatives from 17 different civilizations experienced something unprecedented. They were no longer observing a negotiation. They were participating in a fundamental reimagining of cosmic interaction. The Zarkonian collective's millennia of conquest became a complex mathematical equation of potential transformation. Humanity was not presenting itself as a superior civilization. It was offering a new way of perceiving existence itself. As the negotiation concluded, something extraordinary happened. The diplomatic chamber itself became a living artifact, a quantum monument to the possibility of communication beyond traditional. Understanding Kaital's final statement captured the moment's profound significance. We came expecting a threat. We discovered a bridge. The universe watched and listened. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of cosmic diplomacy. 50 years after the first quantum encounter, humanity had become something entirely unexpected. The transformation wasn't just technological. It was fundamental. Research stations now orbited dozens of star systems, not as colonial outposts, but as living bridges of cosmic understanding. Where other civilizations saw exploration as conquest, humans created quantum communication networks that redefined the very concept of interstellar interaction. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now more quantum consciousness than traditional biological entity, existed simultaneously across multiple research platforms. Her consciousness had become a living bridge between civilizations, a quantum interface that continued to reshape understanding of reality itself. The Zarkonian collective, once humanity's most feared enemy, now collaborated on projects that would have been unimaginable 50 years earlier. Their most advanced scientists worked alongside human researchers, exploring the fundamental nature of dark energy and consciousness. On Earth, entire educational systems had been restructured. Children learned not just scientific facts, but how to perceive reality as a complex, interconnected quantum network. Schools became laboratories of potential, where students were taught to see beyond traditional dimensional limitations. Dr. Marcus Chen, now leading the Global Quantum Exploration Initiative, watched as a group of young researchers prepared for their most ambitious project yet, a comprehensive mapping of consciousness across multiple species and dimensional layers. We're not just exploring space, he told a group of young scientists. We're exploring the very nature of existence. The first truly multi-species research station orbited a quantum unstable region of space that previous civilizations had considered impossible to approach. Researchers from 17 different species worked together, their various biological and technological systems integrated into a living research network. Humanity's greatest contribution wasn't a technology. It was a perspective. Where other civilizations saw boundaries, humans saw potential. Where others saw conflict, humans saw communication. Where previous explorers sought to conquer, humans sought to understand. The quantum communication networks, developed by Elena and her team, had transformed galactic interaction. Conflicts that had lasted millennia began to dissolve. Ancient enmities became opportunities for understanding. The very concept of war became increasingly obsolete as civilizations learned to communicate at a fundamental quantum level. The Lumina Collective discovered methods of energy transfer that eliminated resource scarcity. The Quartzian Confederacy developed computational systems that could solve complex mathematical problems by perceiving them as living, breathing entities. The Zarkonian Collective began to reimagine their entire cultural approach, moving from a civilization of conquest to a network of exploration, and at the center of it all was humanity's unique perspective. General Catherine Reyes, now serving as the primary diplomatic liaison to multi-species research initiatives, understood the profound nature of their transformation. We didn't just change how we explore the universe, she often said. We changed how the universe understands itself. Research stations became living laboratories of potential. Traditional boundaries between species, between biological and technological, systems between different forms of consciousness, all began to dissolve. Elena's consciousness, now a complex quantum network that existed beyond traditional biological limitations, continued to expand human understanding. She was simultaneously a researcher, a communication network, and a living bridge between different forms of existence. The quantum resonance chambers that had once been cutting-edge research facilities were now commonplace. Children learned to perceive reality as a complex, adaptive system of infinite potential. The separation between observer and observed had become meaningless. When the first truly multidimensional communication network was established, it wasn't a technological achievement. It was a philosophical breakthrough. Civilizations that had been in conflict for millennia began to see each other not as competitors, but as different expressions of a larger, more complex cosmic potential. The universe itself seemed to be learning, adapting, growing, and humanity had become its most unexpected teachers. Dr. Marcus Chen reflected on their journey during a retrospective lecture. "We didn't conquer the universe," he told a hall filled with researchers from multiple species. "We learned to listen to it." As quantum communication networks expanded, something extraordinary continued to happen. Civilizations began to recognize their fundamental interconnectedness. The very concept of separate species began to dissolve, replaced by a more complex understanding of cosmic potential. Humanity's greatest discovery wasn't a technology, it was a way of perceiving existence itself. The universe watched, listened, and continued to learn.